and you open up your Yahoo, you're going to see WNBA playoff viewership down now that Caitlin is out. And is that somewhat factually accurate? Yes. It's not accurate. Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw.
Yeah.
She brings in all the things. We know this. We've said this. And yes, the games where she's not playing have lower viewership. But in the WNBA playoffs, and we'll use the semifinals as the example, the WNBA playoff semifinal games where Caitlin obviously is not in it because her team lost are still breaking records from previous WNBA years, are still cracking 1 million viewers.
One of the greatest point guards in the sport of basketball, Sue Bird, is going to hold court for this man, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, and his co-host on First Take, NFL Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe.
So these numbers are still really high and they're still really meaningful and they still show and tell a story of the viewership that is being gained in the WNBA. And yet some people continue to flip that. Those people, I've seen Stephen A. Smith talk about it. I've seen Shannon Sharpe talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product? It's a business you're in. It's not that they can't. And by the way, it's not that they can't be critical of certain things. They can have their opinions. But that's where I don't understand the framing of that. That's where it loses me.
A totally fair point. Here was Smith in his own words.
Staying with the WNBA playoffs, let's stay here. Let's just say the ratings aren't the same with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever now eliminated. Game 1 of the Aces Liberty matchup on Sunday drew an average of 929,000 viewers. It's a good number for the WNBA on an NFL Sunday. However, that was down nearly 50% from last Sunday's Fever Sun contest. By the way, not only was viewership down, but attendance was as well. Do you want me to just say I told you so, or are you willing to say, Stephen A., you did tell us? Really? Caitlin Clark is the golden goose. Not most, not all, but some people spent some time resenting her for it. Cheryl Swoops was one of those people. You want to give shine, you want to give love to others other than her. Just say what you truly feel.
On his show Nightcap, which he hosts with Chad Ochocinco, another former NFL player, Sharpe would say, and I quote, "All I know is when Caitlin Clark was eliminated, the attendance dropped." More from Sue Bird.
Now, the reason why it really, really gets my blood boiling is because it's the exact same thing we see in every other sport. When, I'm going to go on a limb here, but when Messi plays, something tells me the viewership's higher.
Ticket sales are up.
But we're going to use basketball. This last year, the Celtics and the Mavs were in the finals. That viewership was amazing. It was like 5 point whatever million. Amazing. Lower than the previous years. Lower than when LeBron's in it. Lower than when Steph Curry's in it. Why? And yet, we don't hear anyone on the Celtics and the Mavs. That is not how this works. It's because there's some players that are just so transcendent that the viewership's going to be insane no matter what.
Great.
And it has nothing to do with the other players, the other teams. And that's the part that I'm really understanding.
Let's pause here. As noted by Awful Announcing, neither Shannon Sharpe nor Stephen A. Smith would go on to mention the year-over-year increase for the W as a whole. So clearly, not one of those talk show hosts is telling the entire story about the W's viewership, and Sue Bird is very clearly irked about this when it comes to how they are covering the sport. Athlon Sports, if we were to go over the numbers, would go a little deeper. Game 1 of the semis between the Liberty and the Aces drew a staggering 994,000 viewers. That is the most watched WNBA semifinal in 22 years. It appears Smith did not mention this on his pod, instead opting to say it's a good number.
I do think with Stephen A. and with Shannon, there's an aspect of them like defending their stances on her. Like, we were right about Caitlin and this is our defense. And I still think there's something twisted there because nobody ever said that Caitlin wasn't going to be a marketing
Nobody.
gem, a unicorn. His wires crossed a little bit. I think he
Exactly.
was trying to talk about the regular season and how some teams had to, like Washington, D.C., the Mystics is an example. Atlanta, they play in
A lot
smaller
of teams
venues. They had to
moved.
move.
Great.
But, I mean, I don't know how you explain. Like, honestly, look at the Golden State Valkyries. It's an expansion team. They've already sold out. I think it's 18,000 season tickets. Caitlin doesn't play there.
Megan Rapinoe would then say this.
Like your wires crossed, like I understand that you got your wires crossed, so that doesn't really do anything for anybody when all of your viewers now think that that is the case. So unless you went back and said that that was untrue or that that was false or you got messed up. But also like we've been to the Liberty Games. They're full. It looks full in Vegas. It looks full every single place
It is.
that you go. TD Garden sold out when Caitlin wasn't playing there for a regular season. Like it's happening all over the WNBA. So let's just not to say that we can't have any sort of criticism or we can't look at things critically in women's sports, but the ways in which some of these, frankly, it's a lot of men, these male journalists or talking heads are constantly using a negative framework or a diminishing framework to talk about women's sports is really harmful. You have big platforms. You have huge platforms. Like people do listen to you. So at the very least, like get your facts straight. If you're not going to every single time LeBron James doesn't play on TV, if you're not going to every single time say this is lower than the average game that LeBron, then don't say it about Caitlin.
Yeah.
It's
know,
frustrating.
Pause once more here. As we just think about this, all right, and I want everyone to take a step back here. Sue Bird is admitting that Caitlin Clark is, she called her a gem and a unicorn. It's giving credit where it's due. But I think we also need to remember that over the years, as we have covered when it comes to women's college basketball, when it comes to the leadership, people in positions of leadership were saying, give us airtime. Just give us some airtime. I promise you we have a good product. They were desperate to get the league on ESPN, ABC, major networks to just be like, yo, we have something that is great. You guys don't know how good you have it. And I will give you a great example of how the networks don't know how good they have it. ESPN purchased the rights to show women's college basketball, and this is even pre-Caitlin Clark, to show women's college basketball that was lumped in with like softball and college tennis and track. It was at such a discounted fee. Think about if you somehow bought something for $1 and over the years, it actually turned out to be worth millions. That was their investment. They had no idea how good they had it. And the W was preaching the same stuff. Stop putting us on ESPN Plus or ESPN2 or CBS Sports Network, like channels that not a lot of people go to. Put us on the mainstream and we will show you how good y'all have it. And it turned out to be true. They were already on this upward trajectory. What Caitlin Clark did was give a bolt to get to this point. But they were going to reach it if Caitlin Clark was there or not. And I think that's part of the problem and how a lot of players just feel like, what is going on here? How are you just saying it's because of one person when really it is a collective, cohesive group under the WNBA title, and it has to do with the labor force that is putting out these games, this product over and over, year over year, that has cemented where the league is and how it's only going to get better. It is on all of them. And what really is a huge letdown, and I know many in sports media, specifically the women's basketball space, will agree, when Shannon Sharpe and Stephen A. Smith go out there, it is always about playing this role of having to defend and anoint Caitlin Clark, because let's also be clear about this, all right? And I know this. They go in to these meetings, these production meetings, because they know the numbers that these clips get on social media. that get, if you consider YouTube a social media, I suppose I do, but on YouTube, on Facebook, like all of these. And they see what works and what doesn't. And that's why you always hear them talking about the Cowboys. That's why you always hear them talking about Steph Curry. That's why you always hear them talking about Caitlin Clark. It's a letdown, but we also know that in a way it's manufactured to keep the nucleus of what they have. And it goes to show as well that Monica McNutt was right. She is validated at the end of the day. Very quickly, before we log off here, another footnote. The decline in numbers can largely be attributed to intense competition from the National Football League. Not to mention, the Dodgers and Yankees are still, as of this taping, in the MLB playoffs. That is going to have some sort of effect, whether you want to believe it or not. The NHL season has started. That is going to have some sort of effect. There's a lot going on. A lot of people say March is the best. October is damn good too when it comes to us sports fans. That could potentially lead to somewhat of a decline when it comes to the W as well. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.